Millie went to work as a maid for her Navajo aunt, who lets her so-called live with her for 3 hours, about the time she does work. Work starts at 3 p.m. and ends on 6 p.m. Millie is part white, part Japanese, half Navajo. Her aunt is from her Navajo father's side of the family. Her aunt's name is Myrtle. Myrtle says, "You did a good job," to Millie, as if
starstruck.
Face. Millie asks, "Can my friends live with you? We have a 5 and 4-year-old girl with us." With a face with smiling eyes, rosy cheeks, and puckered lips giving a kiss. Myrtle says, "You live in my house for only 3 hours. With a smiling face with hearts. Millie says that 3 hours isn't enough. "I don't live here, I just work here. I don't even sleep here. I sleep in an alley." Livid. Myrtle says ever since the Skinwalkers took over Arizona and the Navajo Nation and have been exterminating half Navajos for their lack of impurity, and I will say, with a smiley face. Myrtle screams, "Skinwalker!" with a smiley face. Millie yells, "If you do that, you'll call those witches over," with a fearful face. Myrtle hears a knock on the door saying they're here, with a smirking face. Millie ran out the back door in a flurry of hurry. Myrtle laughs. The Skinwalkers, Mondo, breaks open the door in the form of an elephant. Mondo returns to human form, saying, "Who's the mixed child in the family?" with a unamused face. Myrtle says, "Gone," with a grinning face with sweat. Millie ran out the back door and didn't dare to accidentally lead him to the alley kids. Myrtle threw ash at him and Mondo got irritated by the demon inside of him and left. Myrtle says the ashes of that burnt plant worked good, laughing while right next to her on the coffee table is a pot of burnt ashes. This will be horrifying to Navajos, but the governor of Arizona have all resorted to witchcraft in the year 2025. All the leaders of the state of Arizona except the president are Skinwalkers, now. Arizona's new leader now wants to dispose of anyone mixed with Navajo that is not pure Navajos. They will not allow anything of the sort. There are concentration camps for them. Anyone mixed with part white is especially attacked, especially if they're mixed with Italian, Spanish or British. The mixed kids are protesting and they're rioting on the streets. Statues of the Skinwalker leaders, who are also Navajo, are being pushed into rivers by children ages 5 to 17. Mixed babies are sometimes used to create Skinwalkers, as there must be a human sacrifice to create one. They hurt infants. They use infants. Millie went into the woods where they kept their fruits and vegetables that they planted. There was a little wooden box with a pile of bags of ice underneath it. This is where they store the food. It was old school because back in the Victorian era, they used to have a wooden box that was like a refrigerator, but because it wasn't electronic cause they didn't have electricity, they had a compartment underneath the fridge in the fridge where they put a giant ice block to keep the food fresh and they would replace it. This is how the mixed Navajo kids kept the food fresh in 2025 because they were too poor. Millie harvests the newly, fully grown fruit and puts them in the cooler. Millie uses her knife from her aunt's house and cut open the fruit and takes the seeds and replanted them, and then she scrapes off the strawberry seeds off of the outside of the strawberry. The tiny little black spots you see on the strawberry are actually seeds. Their seeds are on the outside. She plants those seeds to make more strawberries. Millie feels all of the ice bags underneath the wooden box. This is to test and see if any of them are melted. Then Millie can replace them with new bags of ice. Millie takes the melted bags and uses them for water to drink. God, aka Jesus Christ, asks Millie if she need any help with that. Kissing face. Millie had 20 bags of ice under the wooden box. 16 of those bags of ice are melted. God makes the ice freeze back up. Millie says, "Father God, Abba, thanks, in Jesus Christ's name, Amen," kissing face. Millie told God that, "I love you. I feel so dejected. Nobody loves Christians." Millie cries out that angels of God hate American Christians. "At least I'm not from Texas, they hate them like it's a sport." Angels of God looked at her in depression. Millie says, "You hate the mixed kids. We're too white. Not Navajo enough. We're too black. Not Navajo enough." We focus on the bag of ice that God just froze up so that the mixed kids could have fresh food. Millie tears up saying because of our white ancestors who did bad things, I'm pretty sure that no one loves us. I feel cursed with white, black and mixed blood. Millie says that everything sucks. God asks if I hated you, why would I freeze that water for you? I love you no matter how you feel and what those witches tell you. In concern, Millie farts and then blushes. Millie stood up as God laughed. Millie smiles and giggles because of it. Millie pulls out her old phone. This phone is a really old phone. It's one of those phones that you didn't have to charge. She gave it to her friends so that they wouldn't have to charge theirs and that they could have it when in danger. Millie calls Molly, saying that I checked on the harvest like I do every day after working at my hands. With a smirking face. Molly yells that's awesome! With a smiling face with an open mouth and smiling eyes. Millie says I even grew those pine trees you have to eat because God used to grow them on your planet as a good source. With a smiley face. Molly says thanks, with an enthusiastic feeling of adoration. Millie replies they're in the no freeze box. With a yellow face with smiling eyes, rosy cheeks, and puckered lips as if she was giving a kiss. The box is in a tin and Molly replies is it time for dinner? I don't feel too hungry. Millie says the species you're mixed with, Plymouth, doesn't get hungry often. With a smirking face. Molly asks when do I come over? With a embarrassed smiley face. Millie says to follow the map I left. With a kissing face. Molly says alright. Take it chill. With a kissing face, then hung up. Molly led her friends to the forest. They never went by Myrtle's house. Millie hugs them saying glad you guys made it here safely. I was stupid and forgot to mention that Myrtle called the skinwalker over. I haven't seen him. Though. How can you help what you forget, right? It just happens. With a slight frown and guilt. Molly says did he hurt you? In concern for Millie. Millie says I ran. Listen, I'm broke. I didn't get the $234 she owes. With a disappointed face. Molly yells that's the income for the whole group. In fear that they won't have enough money to buy food. Alex says I knew I should have worked the odd job. In concern for her ability to pay for what they need. Millie says well, it's not like I can go back. I guess we'll just go to the library and get on the computer and do a Fiverr job. It's free. I think. With a smiley face. At your local library, you will find free computer access and free access to the internet. The types of software available vary from library to library as do time limits and hours of access. Millie says my local library offers free stuff. With a romantic face. Alex says remember, we gotta read those school books because we have to substitute school. With a smiling face with hearts. School time in the group is 3 p.m. to 4 p.m. Millie asks I, sweating nervously, about to say something when she realizes that the time was 3:55 p.m. Millie says it's really been an hour. Why aren't you at the library? Sweating. Alex and the children pause. Alex says we skipped. With an unamused face. Millie sighs and yells you gotta get school to get out of this hole, it's a necessity. Angrily. Millie took them to the library and made them work an extra hour with her. Her school hours are different because her work hours begin when their school hours begin. Her school hours are from 4 p.m. to 6 p.m. These are the hours that she set up for herself because they had to homeschool due to not having enough money. They went to Khan Academy online. Millie says that if people who didn't have a lot of money just know about these homeschooling opportunities, and that they could go to the library and get access to free computers and free internet so that they could learn, it'd be a lot better. With a smirking face. Ava says that yup, people shouldn't discriminate against people who homeschool. Not that they discriminate against people who homeschool. Especially not just because they're religious, they don't do that to Muslims. With an unamused face. Millie says they do but for darker reasons. Sadly. Ava asks like they assume they're abusers? Sadly. Millie says yeah. Stereotypes that happen, sometimes. Upset Abba to it. Ava says sad. With a disappointed face. Millie says when I get my own apartment, I'll help the community by sharing these homeschool services when I grow up. With a wink in her right eye. Ava says yeah. With a smiley face. Ply asks how do they make friends if they stay home all day? With a kissing face. Ava says you can just make friends by taking the kids to the park. Before I got homeless I used to be home from school and my parents would just solve that problem by taking me to the park and telling me to play with the kids. With a smiling face with hearts. Ply says for all the people in the back we got homeless because they killed our parents. Nervously. Ply had yelled this out because she knew that people would assume that homeschooling made them stupid, and thus, made them homeless. In reality, the children were homeless because the skinwalkers had killed their parents and were hunting them down and they were too afraid to stay in their previous homes out of fear that the skinwalkers would stay there and hurt them. Millie and Ava tag teamed raising the orphan children. All the children were on individual computers doing homework. Ava asks Millie can you go online and look for something really cheap like a box? When I was little my mom would go to the post office website the government one and she would. With a kissing face. Ava finished a test. Ava continues. She would be able to get free boxes from the internet from the post office. Says Ava with a smiling face with hearts. Ava was worried that the people would think that she wasn't actually homeless and that her parents weren't actually dead when they were, even though she was simply recalling old memories that she had with her parents. So, Ava yells out to people at the library this happened before she died. Sadly. Millie slaps her arm yelling everyone, shut up! Enraged that they would shout in a library while knowing better than to do that. No one really minded as not everyone was quiet in this library. It was common to have people shout their lungs out. Ava stayed quiet like the other children who knew better than to scream inside of the library except for Ply. After they were finished, Ava and Millie went to the forest to check on the food. Ava paused. She stared at the food wooden cooler. Ava slowly crept toward it in case of danger while the other children stayed behind and watched. Ava slowly opened it. God had an angel protect the food that day. Ava yells my prayers worked, God sent an angel to protect the goodies, romantic face. All the children went and got lots of food to eat. After eating, the children all checked the ice packets. God suggested that instead of keeping the pine cones in the tent, you should keep the ice packets in the cooler in the tent to shield it from the heat. Kindly and softly. Ava says good idea, Father, romantic face. All children had heard him so they moved out the pine cones and they moved in the ice in the cooler and put the cooler on top of the ice. God says try putting the ice inside of the cooler. Ava asks should we take the ice out of the bags or leave it in the bags? God says the bags are dirty from the dirt on the ground, so take the ice out. So, the children listened and took the ice outside of their bags and poured the ice inside of the cooler. Ava says I don't think the Boy Scouts were culturally appropriating the Native Americans. Ava continues I think they were trying to teach the kids how to survive in the wild because now that we're homeless, a lot of that camping stuff, we really need. Millie says that some things are just necessities. With a flushed face. Ava asks since we're mixed, is it really culturally appropriating if we just decide to use their survival skills? Nervously. Millie says even if it was, you do what you got to do. No one likes to kill an animal. With a sweating face. Ava says we're living off of fruit. With an unamused face. Millie says you know what I mean. With a embarrassed smiley face. Ava says not really. Confused. Millie says sometimes people have to do things that other people don't like or that the people that are doing it don't like. With a persevering face. Ava says survival? Sweating face. Millie says we're homeless and living in tents in alleyway and in the forest keeping your stuff in wooden coolers. We were so poor that we had to go back to the Victorian era. Laughing hysterically. Ava says how? Laughing out loud. And loudly. Millie says in the Victorian era, they would actually have a fridge just like ours. Millie says they would take a sort of cabinet-like thing and at the bottom of the cabinet, with a smiley face. In one of the drawers, they would put a giant block of ice to keep the food above it cool, and above the little cabinet compartment would be where they put the food. Says Millie with a smiling face with hearts. Ava says basically makeshift cooling. Nervously but laughing on the inside. Millie says I will only marry a man with a job. I do not want to marry a homeless dude. With a sweating face. Ava says me too, I don't have the resources to even marry a homeless guy. I don't even have the resources to date a poor person. With a flushed face. Millie says it's not that I don't like them, it's just that I'm poor, too, and I need to take care of myself. With a disappointed face. Ava says I want a man with a job and a six-figure, I hope that he will accept me. With a persevering face. Millie says I hope he doesn't think we're trying to use them. With a kissing face. Ava says I just want a good life. I can be middle class. I just want him to have a job. With a persevering face. Millie says cops actually make a lower middle class income, but they still make a good income, and since he's a cop, he can protect me. With a smiling face with hearts. Ava says lower middle class? With a persevering face. Millie says that online I read on a chart before my parents died that the income that cops made was classified as lower middle class. Anything less than that was poor. With a persevering face. This is a real chart. Ava says my husband better not screw his job up and kill a black man for no reason. Kivid. Millie says Orte's a Native American for a stupid reason. With a flushed face. Ava says that was one park ranger. Not a cop. With a unamused face. That actually happened. Ava says that did you know a nurse said that him tasting that Native American could have actually been really dangerous? With a flushed face. They heard the sound of a coyote. Ava asks the heck? With a scared face. The Navajo Nation's wild creatures include black bear, bobcat, Mexican wolves, mule deer, elk, Gila monsters, coyotes, cougars, and red foxes, as well as wild turkey, cranes, golden eagle, red-tailed hawk, and great horned owls. Here's a sampling of the endangered and threatened animals on the list in Arizona. The Mexican gray wolf is endangered. The black-footed ferret is endangered. The species of the Mexican spotted owl is threatened. The species of the ridge-nosed rattlesnake is threatened. Jaguars and ocelots is endangered. Sonoran tiger salamander is endangered. Anything chub. Ava says didn't they put all the coyotes in a zoo that used to be in this area? That was in 2024. With a scared face. Millie says I know people may hate me for this, but I hope one didn't escape. I'm homeless and I don't have a house to run to. With a scared face. Ava says crap. With a scared face. God protects them by telling the skinwalker posing as a coyote to go out of the forest. As a command, the type of command that creates things. The skinwalker left after changing back into his human form. Ava hears the rustling of leaves as God tells the children that that wasn't a coyote, that was a skinwalker. Ava looks at the other children as the children gasp in alarm. All of the children and teens instantly cover their mouths. This was to keep from screaming. Molly is half Navajo human, half Plymouth alien. Plymouth is a species. Plymouths do not have race in their species, so Molly should be just considered a Navajo. The only reason she got this race is because her mother was human. Unfortunately, because she is not fully Navajo due to being half alien, the government wants to end her life, especially since the higher-ups only see her as an abomination for being half human, half alien.